Hello and welcome back to Booking Through Life. I'm Mary, and just a quick thank you to all of you who have joined and subscribed to my channel lately. I'm just so excited to have new people tuning in and commenting on my videos. Thank you so much. Today I'm going to do the mid-year book Freak Out tag. It's the first time I've ever done this. It's the first time I've had a channel during the mid-year. And so I'm excited to do this. I'm not quite sure why it's a freak out tag. I'm not quite sure why I should be freaking out. But it makes me think of Kramer on Seinfeld. I'm freaking out. Anyway, I'm not freaking out. Thank you very much. But I am going to do this tag. So, I guess the original, I haven't looked at their channel, so I need to go and do that as soon as I'm done with this. Oh, my phone just zoomed out. But the original tags, as far as I know, were created by, I'm not sure if it's Ellie or Eli at Earl Grey Books, and Chami, I'm going to say it's Chami at Is That Chami? And I will put their links down below so you can check them out. And like I said, I need to check them out too. Anyway, so there's 13 questions. Let's ask the questions and see what the answers might be. So here we go. The first question is, best book you've read so far this year? Well, I have had a really good year so far. I should have counted how many 5 stars. I've had probably 3 or 4 5-star reads, and I've had maybe 4 or 5 4-star reads. And last year was mostly 3-star reads, so I'm really excited about this above average year of reading. Well, I read a book with my mom. We buddy read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So how can that not be the best book I've read so far? I was like, oh my gosh, well that's going to hands down be it. And I have so many good books. But I've been able to squeeze in my 4 and 5 stars for some of these answers. So I'm not going to be sad that Jane Eyre was the best book that I've read this year. It was super good, and it was super good to read it with my mom. So that was exciting. And we'd been wanting to do that for a couple of years. We had read Wuthering Heights, and so we wanted to read Jane Eyre as well. All right, let's move on. Question number 2, the best sequel you've read so far? Well, that was an easy one, and it's another 4 and 5-star pick. So, Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce has been a favorite book of mine for a long time. I wanted to read the sequel or the next book. It's now, she's going to have another book coming out. But I wanted to read the sequel, which is Yours Cheerfully. And it had been a few years since I had read Mrs. Bird. And so I reread Dear Mrs. Bird, 5-star. And I gave Yours Cheerfully a 4-star. But super great books. It's about these 2 friends, Emmeline Lake and her best friend Bunty, and they're in World War II time. So it's a really great series on women and friendships and things that happen to women during World War II. And anyway, I just highly recommend them, especially if you like historical fiction, or if you like stories with strong women. Great storyline, very engaging. Pick up these books; they're excellent. Okay, number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. Well, that was easy. I had pre-ordered this book, and it came in June, and because of Jane Austen July, I'm putting it off until August. And I think this is book 11, in the Lady Darby Mystery Series, A Fatal Illusion by Anna Lee Huber. These books are so, so good. I just can't highly recommend them enough. If you like historical fiction, historical mystery, stories with, again, strong female characters, romance. It has a little bit of romance, but the main thing is the mystery. And a lot of it's set in Scotland, also in England in the 1800s. Lady Darby was married to an anatomist, and it was not a good marriage match. He was very cruel to her. She's an artist, and he forced her to draw pictures of his cadavers and body parts. And so when he was murdered and that came out in society, it was a scandal for her. And so she's kind of known as kind of a little bit of a tainted lady. She meets the handsome and engaging Sebastian Gage in the first novel, or the first book of the series. And of course, there's sparks that fly. And so their story continues. You get kind of the same characters, reoccur in the storyline. The storyline of both she and Sebastian Gage and their families continues, and it's really interesting. I believe it's clean, but just a very endearing love story. And like I said, it just keeps going, and it's very nice. Highly recommend that book. I highly recommend all the books, well, except one. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I already talked about the Mrs. Bird series. She's having another book come out between August and November. I can't remember when. I should have looked that up before I got on and recorded. But she has a third one, and I'm so looking forward to the continuing story of Emmy and Bunty and their friendship and their love relationships. And then S.J. Bennett, who wrote The Windsor Knot and All the Queensmen, the next book in this series is coming out as well too, and I'm super excited. This is Her Majesty the Queen Investigates. They are so cute, and if you are missing Queen Elizabeth II, these are good books to dive into and just get a little nostalgia for her. Okay. Moving on to number 5, and that's the biggest disappointment of the year. Sorry for the cursing. It's in the title. But the biggest disappointment I read in February, and it was called Welcome to the Goddamn Ice Cube. I finally DNF'd it when I had like 25 pages left to go. It's written by Blair Braverman. It's her biographical account of the time when autobiographical account of the time when she was in Norway and Alaska, and she was working with sled dogs. I thought it was going to be a book about adventure and about sled dogs, and it was more a book about her and unhealthy relationships and some things that happened with that. And it just really wasn't my cup of tea. So, and I really, really was looking forward to it. My husband and I are going to Norway at the end of the month, and so I really wanted to read some good Norway books, but I think that put me off of Norway books, at least for now. Maybe I'll find some good Norway books while we're there. So that was the biggest disappointment. Biggest surprise of the year. The biggest surprise, I'm kind of saying it's the biggest delight of the year, and that's the Fomo Bookclub that is hosted by Alice at Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, Gemma at Gem of Books, and Jack at Spreads Book Joy. And we have read some of the best books that I have read this year. We started off this year reading Daphne du Maurier's Jamaica Inn, which was a 5-star read for me. I love this book. I need to read some more du Maurier soon. Next, we read Good Night, Mr. Tom by Michelle Magarian, and I could not find my copy. I looked for it for, I don't know, about 15 or 20 minutes, and finally I was like, just forget it. But that book was so good. It's a middle grade book, but it is gut-wrenching. It's about a young boy who lives in London during World War II, and he's moved out into the country because of the bombing, and he stays with Mr. Tom. And he is a boy who has been abused. He has been neglected. He is malnourished and undereducated, and he flourishes as he stays with Mr. Tom. And Mr. Tom's kind of this curmudgeon-y old man, Billy, I can't remember his name, but he kind of gets under Mr. Tom's skin in a good way, and they just have this delightful relationship. I'm going to look and see if I can find his name while I'm talking. The little boy is sent back to London, and some heartbreaking things happen. And I guess I can't find it, but it's such a good book. And yeah. Oh yeah, here we go. Willie, it is Willie Beach. And then the book that we're just finishing up is called The Dance Tree by Karen Millwood Hargrave. And this book was very good too. I gave this, I think, a 4-star. I had a hard time reading this. This had some heart-wrenching things that happened too. It's really difficult to sometimes stomach the things that happen to women in earlier times. This was set in 1518 Strasbourg, and it's based around a real thing that happened, and that's these women started to just dance. It was like this, they were crazed, or they were in a trance, or it was like a spiritual thing, either for good or for evil. They didn't know. There was a lot of the country at the time was in a time of famine, a time of poverty, and definitely a time where the men, had all the control, and even control to say whether something was evil or whether it was from God. And so this is the setting. This is happening in the town, but we're really looking at this woman named Lisbeth. She's pregnant, and she's had multiple miscarriages before, so she's kind of desperate to carry this baby to term. She and her husband aren't having, they've disconnected. Her mother-in-law is horrible to her, even taunts her with the fact that she was able to carry babies to full term. Why can't Lisbeth? And then Lisbeth's sister-in-law, Agneth, she is away and just now coming back home after spending 7 years in a mountain area convent doing penance for this unnamed sin. Nobody will talk about what she did to have to go and do penance. And so all this is happening in the midst of this dance tree. And it's a very engaging story, but it was very, very hard and very sad in some places, but very good. And we're going to be talking about it soon, so I can't wait to kind of debrief with everybody. And thanks to Kat at Kat's Novel Adventures, because she and I did a little bit of discussion about it because I was so disturbed over it. So the Fomo Book Club has just absolutely been fabulous. So that has been one of my biggest surprises. And then number 7 is a favorite new debut or new to me author. And so for this was a 4-star read for me. I chose, she's not a new author. In fact, she's writing the last one of this series. And, or is that Carrie Bebris? No, I think it's Stephanie Barron. And I think it's either the 15th or the 17th one in this series. And this is a Jane Austen mystery called Jane and the Unpleasantness at Scargrave Manor. I've already discussed this one, so I'm not going to say too much about it, except that it was a 4-star. And if you like Jane Austen, if you like mysteries, if you like historical fiction mysteries, you'll love this. All right, the next one is Newest Fictional Crush. Now, I wasn't 100% sure what that meant. Does that mean I have like a crush, like I'm a little bit in love with a character in a book? Because I don't think that's ever happened to me. I certainly love Mr. Darcy, but I don't really feel like I crush on him. I don't even really have actor crushes. The closest maybe I come to is the Keira Knightley version, Matthew McFadden, Mr. Darcy. But it isn't really that I'm so much crush on him. I just love how that relationship is portrayed in that movie. If I did have a crush, maybe Henry Cavill. I don't know if it's quite a crush, and he's way too young for me, so it's inappropriate. So the person I crush on the most is my husband. Anyway, so then I thought, is it like the whole book? I kind of have a crush on the whole book, because I do have sort of an answer for that. But how I decided to answer the question is I would just talk about 2 relationships that I really loved. I loved seeing them. I love to have more of them. So the first one is The Rose Garden by Susanna Kearsley, and that's the relationship is Daniel Butler and Eva Ward, and this is a time traveling story, and so yeah, it was just very good. Eva is mourning the loss of her sister, and she goes to she's an American, and she goes to England to a place where she and her sister spent a lot of time, and she goes to spread her ashes there, and she gets sucked in to the past, and she doesn't even know how. It just kind of happens randomly, just right when she's around that Trellowith is the name of the estate, and when she's at that estate, she can get sucked into the 1800s. And Daniel Butler is there, and he's quite the hero, and so the story goes on. And so I really like those 2. And then my other one is a book that I haven't finished yet. I'm reading it right now. It's The Year in Between by Christina Moreland, and I am really enjoying it. It's a Sense and Sensibility expansion novel, and it's the year in between, so it happens actually during the novel of Sense and Sensibility towards the end, and it tells you what happens after or when Eleanor gets married, and the first year of her marriage, and then how Marianne starts to have feelings for Colonel Brandon. And man, I am enjoying that. That's not one of my favorite Jane Austen books, but it might end up being up there because of this particular book. I am so enjoying Marianne and her desire to grow and transform after her downfall with Willoughby, and then how she slowly is starting to appreciate and fall in love with Colonel Brandon. So it's super sweet. I'm in love with that book. I hope that as I continue to read it, that it doesn't disappoint to the very end. And then I think the next question, and the book is my other fictional crush. I kind of have a crush on this book series. It says new favorite character. So I picked Evan Evans from Evans Above by Rhys Bowen, And this is a Constable Evan mystery. It's the first one of the series. And I just love this little Welsh town called Llanfair and all the quirky characters that are in this town. And Evan Evans is kind of a manly man. He's an outdoorsy type of a guy, but he wants the small town instead of being in a bigger town and being on the police force there. He wants something a little bit quieter. And I just love this. This town here is what I was hoping Three Pines was going to be like. But those characters are a little more sophisticated, a little more snarky. So anyway, I'm loving this series, and I just can't wait to read more of that. So those are my crushes and my favorite characters. Number 10, book that made me cry. Well, I already talked about Goodnight, Mr. Tom. That one, if you don't cry in that one, you don't have any feelings. That one, I cried multiple times. There were just some things that surprised me. I just wasn't expecting what happened to happen. But a very sweet book that made me cry was Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukagawa, and it is translated into English by, I think it's Allison Watts. And this is a very sweet story, and I've already talked about this in my wrap-up, or if you have, I don't know if this one's coming out first or my wrap-up's coming out first, but I talk about this in my wrap-up. So I'm not going to go over the plot of this book, but there's one of the three main characters, Toki. It's Tokue. I don't know how to say that, but she has some shriveled hands, and she's has some things that have happened to her in her past that are sad. All of them kind of have a little bit of troubledness in their lives, and it just made me cry, but yet it's also hopeful and so sweet, and I just love this book, and it's just really a good book. Highly recommend that book. All right, number 11, book that made me happy. That book made me happy and sad, but a book that just was very sweet and very enduring is The Year of Miss Agnes by Kirkpatrick Hill. And this is a middle grade, and it's about a very small town in Alaska, northern Alaska. And it's hard to get good teachers there. And Miss Agnes comes, and she's a fabulous teacher. And it's just her time with these kids, these kiddos, and how she gives them hope and challenges them. There's a deaf character in this book, and I love books with deaf characters when they are portrayed realistically, and this does a very good job. So I highly recommend this book. And I think I talked about two books from Kate Howe's Kindred Spirits book. That was a Kindred Spirit book. That's also a good book club. Number 12, the most beautiful book I have received or bought this year. I bought this book for Jane Austen July, and it's Sense and Sensibility. And I've already talked about how gorgeous this book is, but it's so gorgeous, I'll talk about it again. It has gorgeous end papers. It feels gorgeous. When you read it, you feel gorgeous. I am really looking forward to reading Sense and Sensibility, and you're probably thinking, shouldn't you have read that first before you read The Year in Between? Well, I'm actually glad that I'm reading The Year in Between first, because Sense and Sensibility is a reread for me. And as I said, it's not my favorite one, but I'm hoping that since I'm really enjoying The Year in Between, that maybe I will enjoy Sense and Sensibility even more. And I'm planning on, when I read it, thinking more of the sister relationship than the romantic relationships. I've heard that can possibly help you see it in a different light. So very much looking forward to reading my beautiful copy of Sense and Sensibility, illustrated by Marjolaine Baston. And I hope she does all 6 of them. She's only done 3 so far. Final question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Maybe this is where you freak out. I don't have a list of books I need to read by the end of the year. I need to read the books that I want to read. And so I think that whatever book I read will, one, be a step in getting some books that I've bought and I haven't read off my shelves, or at least read, and encountered some new books. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to more good reads. How about you? If you're still here, what books are you looking forward to reading this year? Have you read any of these books that I've talked about? What's your favorite book of the year? What do you think about that question, fictional crush? Do you crush on fictional characters? Or do you crush on like the whole book itself, or a relationship? I'm really interested in that answer. But you can tell me the answer to any of those questions. And so feel free to comment down below, like and subscribe. And look, we made it. Until next time, I hope all your books are good books, and I'll see you later. Bye.